Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Linkurious Enterprise product deep dive, focusing today on styling. So my name is Marilyn. I'm head of customer success at Linkurious, and today I'm with Andrea Berni, our solution engineer. Hello, Andrea.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea, and I am a solution engineer at Linkurious, and my role is to help our clients dealing with technical challenges and ensuring they gain the most value out of Linkurious Enterprise.
Thank you, Andrea. So the purpose of this presentation is to give you an understanding of how you can leverage Linkurious Enterprise styling features. Here is the agenda we are going to follow. First, we are going to talk about use cases. Then we are going to explore the design panel and see how we can modify the styles. Then we are going to focus on property value styling, see how we can set default styles, and go ahead with advanced stylings and Ogma options. We are going to spend the next 50 minutes or so together. And at the end of this presentation, there will be a Q&A session. You can type your questions anytime in the Q&A section, and we will address them at the end. So let's talk a bit about use cases. Every single organization is different. You have your own way of working, your processes, your constraints, and you want tools able to adapt to the way you work and the way you think. We understand that, and styling is actually one of the ways you can customize Linkurious Enterprise to your own needs. So let's talk a bit about the use cases before we dive into technical details. Our customers leverage the power of the graph and discover connections in their data, thanks to Linkurious Enterprise. The end users are investigators or analysts, and they need to make sense of their data easily and rapidly. And we often get questions about how the styling features of Linkurious Enterprise can help them achieve this goal. Let me give you a few examples. First, let's consider an NGO studying money transfers between companies or politically exposed persons. They use Linkurious Enterprise to highlight the relationships and the dependencies between these entities. And when visualizing this data, they want to be able to use colors, pictures, logos from this company so that the graph is easier to understand. Linkurious Enterprise allows you to define custom styles with the colors, the icons, here the flags, that make sense for your use case. Second example, let's now consider a fraud department in a bank. As part of the surveillance tool available, they have a risk score that is calculated on their data. And there are different thresholds on this score indicating how suspicious a customer is. As fraud analyst, Linkurious user would like the color of the node representing the customer to depend on the value of the score. A low risk and the customer has a green color, for example, and a higher risk and the customer turns red. Since the score is calculated regularly, you want the color of the nodes to be dynamic and to depend on the current value of the score. And that's another example of what you can achieve with Linkurious Enterprise styling rules. Third example, let's talk about an audit team checking data from various sources. The team has been using the ability to define a range on a property and associate a size for the node and edges accordingly. The thing is, a fixed range of value is not ideal to address very different situations where the value for a given property sometimes spreads from 1 to 100 and sometimes from 10K to 1 million. While Linkurious Enterprise automatic sizing rule helps you define a relative scale that adjusts the size of the node and edges automatically. Last example, very common example. Let's talk about working as a team. In order to be more efficient when working together, you want team members to use the same visual language, the same icons, the same colors, and you want this configuration to be available by default. Linkurious Enterprise ability to define default styles are here to help. So now it's time to learn how to set up these styling rules. And I'm going to let Andrea speak. Before I'm doing that, a quick remark. We have in this webinar a handout section where we have links to our documentation or our blog post. You can check this out and get written information that we're sharing today. So now it's your turn, Andrea.
Thank you, Marilyn. So we can start with a formal definition of style. And a style can be defined as a set of rules that define the visual appearance of elements in a Linkurious Enterprise visualization. And every data source that has been configured in your Linkurious Enterprise environment has its own style rules. And this means that the same person nodes that come, for example, from two different data sources might be visually rendered differently. The entry point for editing the style is the design panel. And in the design panel, users are allowed to change the style of the visualization via the user's interface. In this panel, for example, is possible by clicking on the brush icon that is available in the user interface. It's possible to change for every node category the icon. That is the image that make the nodes more distinguishable, the color, the size, or the caption. And the caption is basically the name visualized under a node or even on an edge. And this is useful for adding more context to the entities displayed and to make them more distinguishable. Then for every edge type, the user can set the color, set the width, and even in this case, it's possible to set the caption. So let's move on to Linkurious Enterprise. We can start with an empty visualization just by typing the name of an entity. Like in my case, I want to add Timmy Cribot. And as you can see, we have right now a node with a very self-explanatory icon that suggests me that this is a person node. If I expand the nodes, you can notice that every node has a different icon and a different color. And similar nodes that are basically the same entities, in my case company, have the same icon and the same color. And under every element, we have a name that is called captions. And in case of company, we have a property that is displayed. In this case, is the name of the company. But what you can have is even the name of the type of the entity, like in this case, we have bank account. Or if you want, you can combine them in order to have multiple properties or the type name in order to describe the nodes. Like in this case, for this mortgage loan nodes, we have the type name plus a property. Now, in order to access the design panel, we need to click on the brush icon, and we are in the design panel. We have two different tabs, one for styles and one for captions. And for every tab, we can select between nodes and edges. Now, let's say that we want to change the icon for the mortgage loan node, since this icon is not really meaningful for me. So I want to change it. What I can do is to go in styles, select nodes, and then go to the mortgage loan nodes and select the icon. If I click here, I'm able to change the icon, and I can choose between the Linkurious library that is shipped with the Linkurious Enterprise server, or if I want, I can select letters, numbers, or you can even add your custom library. If you want to add your custom icons, it's something that is possible with Linkurious Enterprise. You just need to load all the files in the server. So let's switch to the Linkurious library. I want to change the node. I can even type the name, like for example, I want Hanom for this node. I can click here, and as you can see, Now the mortgage loan node has a different icon. Okay, we can go on. And now we can talk about the property value styling. Now I showed how it's possible to change the icon for a group of nodes, more specifically for some node categories or hash types. But in Linkurious Enterprise, it's possible to do something more. In fact, you have the possibility to change the style based on the value of a property. And this can be done for nodes or even for edges. And we call this feature property value styling. Even this kind of customization can be done by all the users and can be done through the user's interface. So once again, we can go back to our demo. As you can see, we have still our visualization. And let's say that I'm an investigator. I want to expand the graph. As you can see right now, I have two different person nodes in my company that, of course, are displayed in the same way. But if I expect this node, I see that this node has been marked as suspicious. And if we see Team Linkurious right now, this person is not suspicious because this value is false. So what I might want to do is to highlight this node because for me is more important than Team Linkurious at this moment of the investigation. What I can do is to once again to go to the design panel, go on person, and if I click here, I'm able to expand the person node and to see all the property for this node. As you can see, we have the suspicious property. And once again, if I expand this property, I can see all the values that are actually contained in my visualization for this value, for this property. So I have false and true. I want to make the suspicious node more visible. So what I can do is basically to change the color for this node. So I can set color. I can choose the red one. And as you can see now, this node has a different color and is clearly more visible. What I want to highlight is that the style change dynamically. So this means that if you for some reason the value of the Linkurious nodes, all the style will be automatically applied. And that's the reason why we say that they are dynamically. So let's try to change, for example, the value of the property suspicious. We can set this to true. This is something that can even be done with a create template. It's something that we already demo in the previous deep dive. So I want to save. And as you can see now, the color of the Linkurious is now different. So let's go on with the technical details of styles, and let's talk about the save styles. In Linkurious Enterprise, there are different levels of saved styles, and we can start from the very first level that is called default style. And this is the default style of the data source. And as said before, every data source has its own specific styling rules. And this is something that can only be changed by an admin users. And when this is changed, this will be applied to the sandboxes of all the users. A sandbox is basically an unsaved visualization, so it's usually a starting point for an investigation. And for this reason, we have a different level of style that is called sandbox style. This is basically the sandbox style, and more specifically for the personal sandbox. In fact, every user has a different and personal sandbox, and users are allowed to change their personal styles. So this can be there might be different reason for doing this. Like for example, I want to make a specific node more distinguishable, or as we saw before, there are an icon that for me is not meaningful. And being able to change this icon only for my personal sandbox is really helpful because I'm not affecting the sandboxes of the other users. So changing the style for the personal sandbox can be done by all the users, and of course they can only change the style for their own sandbox. When we change the personal sandbox style, this style will be applied to all the new visualization. So this will not affect the already saved visualization. And in fact, the last level of visualization are called the saved visualization styles. That is basically the style saved inside a visualization. Every time that an user saves a visualization, the visualization will contain the nodes, the edges, and even the style that was applied at the moment of saving the visualization. And of course, even in this case, the users are allowed to change it in order to make the investigation simpler and more clear. Once again, go back to our demo. So right now we are in a sandbox since this visualization is not saved. As you might remember, we changed some styling rules in this visualization. In fact, we changed the color for suspicious nodes. We changed the icon for the mortgage loan nodes. And this means that if we save this visualization, like for example, I can call it demo01, this visualization is now saved with my personal sandbox style. And since the sandbox is changed, even the new visualization will have the new personal sandbox. So as you can see, Timmy Cribot is still red, and even the mortgage loan node has a different icon. Okay, let's try to go back to the visualization, and let's reopen the demo01 visualization. Now I'm not in a sandbox anymore. And what I want to do is to change the size for the Timmy Cribot node, because in my actual investigation, this is the most important node. So I want to highlight this node. Once again, what I can do is to go to the design panel by clicking on the brush icon, select the person node, and go to full name. That is basically an unique identifier of the node. All the nodes has a different full name value. And what I can do is to change the size of these nodes. I can put to 200%. And as you can see, Timmy Cribot is now bigger than Herc. This is something that we change in a saved visualization. And this means that if we open a new sandbox, we are not going to see the new style applied. So in fact, I have Timmy Cribot, and if I expand other nodes, you can see that Timmy and the other nodes has exactly the same sizing. So the last thing that I can do, since I am an admin in my system, I have the possibility to set this style as default. So basically, I'm the one that needs to specify the styling rule for the whole company. So what I can do is to go once again to my design panel, click on the gear icon here, and as you can see, I can set the style and caption as default. Now, if I click here, this style will be basically the default one. It will be applied to all the dashboard, all the sandboxes of all the users in Linkurious Enterprise. Next topic is the advanced styling. We saw how it's possible to change the icon, the color, or the size of nodes and edges. But in Linkurious Enterprise, you can do something more. In fact, admin users can create more advanced styling rules. And just to give you some example, it's possible to change the shape of a node or even the shape of an edge. It's possible, for example, to change the icon of a node based on the image URL that is stored in a property of the nodes, or to change the style based on the number of connected entities. Every styling rule is basically a JSON object that is composed by the following attributes. We can start with the index, that is the number that defines the order in which the rules are applied in a visualization. We have an item type that is the node category or the hash type. This is something that is necessary in order to specify which is the entity where the rule should be applied. And then we have a type that might be any, no value, not a number, range, and this. And depending on the type that we choose, we have a series of different attributes that, for example, might be input in case we want to expect the value of a specific property. For example, if we use the range type, it means that we want to compare the value specified in the input attribute with another value. We can, for example, have different selectors that are basically greater than, equal, smaller than. And this is something that you can do if you want to change the style based on, for example, a number that you have in a property. Moreover, we can change the style if we have a null value in a node. In order to do this, we should use the no value type. And finally, we have the last attribute that is called style. That is basically another JSON object that contains all the styling rules. So here you can specify how the nodes or the edge should looks in the visualization. And just to give you an example, you can see here a JSON object that is a styling rule for Linkurious Enterprise. We can start from the first attribute, that is the index. In this case, this will be the fourth rule to be applied in my visualization. We have the range type, so it means that we are going to compare the value of a property with something else. More specifically, we want to compare the degree property in a company node, and degree is a statistic property for a node that specify the number of connected entities to the actual node. And what I want to compare if the specific node company has more than 20 connected entity. If this rule is true, what I'm going to do is to change the style, and more specifically, I'm going to apply a different size to the nodes. So this node will be bigger in my visualization. So let's go back to Linkurious Enterprise. Basically, in order to change the styling with some advanced rules, we need to go back to the dashboard. And once again, this is something that only an admin users can do. We need to go to the admin menu and go to the data source settings. As said before, the styles are data source specific, so it's something that is contained in the data source setting page. If we scroll down, we have the first field that is called default captions. And here we have the rules for applying the caption to the visualization. And this is something that has been automatically generated by Linkurious Enterprise when the admin users clicked on set a default styles and caption in the visualization. So the fastest way for building this kind of JSON file is for sure to do this from the user interface in order to build a skeleton of your final styling visualization style. And then from here, you can fine-tuning all the configuration and adding more rules. If we go down, we have the default style field. And here we have all the rules that has been automatically generated from the Linkurious Enterprise user interface for every single node category. and for edge types. So as you can see, the first object is a JSON list where we have a JSON object for every category. Like in this case, we are analyzing the first rule that is for applying a random color to a node that's appearing in a visualization. If we scroll down, we have the more specific rules for every node category. Like in this case, we have the person node where we want to set an icon. In this case, we cannot see the icon, but this is an icon, and to specify the size with all everything that we decide to personalize for these nodes. So what we want to do is to modify the rule that has been generated before, the one for changing the style of suspicious node. This is the rule that we generated before. So it's something that's applied to person nodes where the type, where the values is equal to something that we specify in the value attribute. Like in my case, I want that the suspicious property is equal to true. And if this happens, the style is this one. So we will apply this color. I want to do something more. So what I can do is to add another row, another attribute to this object. And more specifically, I want to change the shape of the nodes. So as you can see here, I have the attribute called shape, and the value is square. So we can save the style. So the style has been set successfully. And if we go back to Linkurious Enterprise, we want to search for a node that is Timmy Gribot. And as you can see now, the shape of this node is changed because this is a suspicious node where the suspicious property is equal to true, and so the shape has been changed. So as you can see, Timmy Gribot is connected to different companies. And let's say that in your data source you have a property that specifies the URL of the logo for this company. So they look exactly the same. But what we can do is to automatically assign a different icon based on the URL of the logo. So once again, we need to go back to the data source configuration page, and we need to create another rule. And basically, if we had this rule, basically I'm saying that I want to modify the company nodes. More specifically, I want to modify all the company nodes. What I want to do is to change the style. More specifically, I want to change the image with the URL that is contained inside the property logo. So I want to say once again the default style. I can go back to the visualization, and as you can see, now I am in an already open sandbox. So what I need to do is basically to click on the brush icon in order to open the side panel. And if I click on the gear icon, I can reset style and caption. This will reload the default style for my data source. This is something that can be done in a sandbox or even in a saved visualization. So for some reason, if for some reason you perform too many changes and the visualization is not clear for you because basically you lost the context of the icons, of the colors, you cannot understand anymore what you have in your visualization, you can always go back to the default styling rules. So by clicking here, Linkurious Enterprise, we reload the default styles for this data source. And as you can see now, I have some flags in my nodes. That is basically the flags pointing to the URL from the URL that we have in the logo property of the nodes. So now let's continue with my investigation. I want to expand the mortgage nodes. I have two suspicious nodes. I want to understand if these two nodes are connected or if they're sharing some money. So what I can do is to expand the bank account nodes of HERC. And as you can see, the secure nodes are connected. Their bank account are connected. They has transferred some money. And as you can see, every hedge has a different amount. And of course, these are exactly look the same because they are all has transferred hedges. In some cases, might be useful to distinguish them. For example, in an investigation, might be more useful to allow bigger money transfers. And this is something that can be done with the automatic resizing feature of Linkurious Enterprise. So basically, with this feature, you are allowed to change the width of edges or the size of nodes based on a range of values of a specific property. So let's go back to the Linkurious Enterprise data source configuration page. This is a rule that we want to apply to edges, so we need to have it the edge list JSON list object. And if we had a new rule, we can basically say, okay, I want to change the style for the has transferred edges. I want to change the style for all of them. And the style to be applied is the following. So I want to change the width, and the width should be automatically resized based on the attribute amount. Basically, with auto range, I'm calling the automatically resizing feature on Linkurious Enterprise. So this means that if I save this style and we go back to Linkurious Enterprise, once again we need to reload the default style for this visualization, because basically this was already opened, so it's something that you need to do manually. I can click here, and as you can see right now, the 4 has transferred edges have a different width, and now is very clear that this is the biggest one. And in fact, we have this amount, and if we click here, we have the smallest amount of money transferred. And of course, that should have a value that is in between 1,500 and 890. We can continue with our investigation. We can see that these 2 bank accounts are connected with one more entity. We can expand it, and we discovered that these 2 bank accounts are connected to the same main bank account node. So let's say that this is the main bank account, so I want to make it bigger because for me this is the main bank account. Sorry, I modified the size of this wrong node. So I want to make this node bigger because it's a global bank account node. And as you can see, there are a lot of transactions, and it might be difficult to understand what's going on. But in my case, I'm using Linkurious Enterprise 2.10, and we have a new feature called edge grouping, and it's something that can be enabled by clicking on the edge group icon. And if I click here, I'm able to collapse all the edges between 2 nodes. And as you can see now, the graph is clearer, and we have some new edges that has a different style from the standard edges. As you can see, they have a different shape. Since this is dotted edge, they have a different width. This is thicker, and moreover, there is a different color. Even in this case, Linkurious Enterprise offer you the possibility to change the style for the edge group edges. So I want to change it. I can go back to the dashboard. I need to open the data source settings. And if we go once again to the default style field, if I scroll down, we have a last object that is called edge group. And here I can add some extra rules for the edge group. So as you can see, what I want to do is to change the width of the edge. I want to change the color, and I want even to change the shape for this kind of edges. So right now I selected arrows. That is the default shape for edges. And if I go to a new visualization, I can quickly expand some nodes. And what you can see is basically that if I group the has transferred edges, they have right now a different style. They have a different color, a different width, and even a different shape, since right now is an arrow. Oh. So the last topic that I want to cover are the Ogma options. Basically, Ogma is the Linkurious proprietary library for building graph visualization. And all the Linkurious Enterprise visualization are based on Ogma. And this means that you have the possibility to change the default configuration for Ogma. And even in this case, this is something that can be only changed by an admin. Go back to the demo. So I said before, I am an admin, so it's something that I can do. I can go back to the dashboard, and since I'm an admin, I can open my admin menu. And Ogma is basically something that is the Ogma configuration is something that are the same for all the data sources that I have in my Linkurious Enterprise. And for this reason, if I want to change something, I need to do this in the global configuration. So not inside the data source settings, but in the global configuration. So I'm now in the global configuration, and if I scroll down, I can reach the Ogma settings. Here we have the defaults setting for Linkurious Enterprise visualizations. As you can see, you have there are a lot of properties that allow you to really customize Linkurious Enterprise. Like, for example, you can change the font of the captions, the color of the captions, the size of the captions. You can even change the way users interact with Linkurious Enterprise by changing some interaction modifier. Like in this case, we have the zoom modifier that specify how much the user need to zoom when they press on the plus icon on minus icon. And let's try to change some values here. So the first thing that I want to do is basically to change the background color. Maybe I want to match it with my company colors. So what I can do is to choose a different color. Like in this case, I want to select a different color. Another thing that I want to do is to change the way Linkurious Enterprise design and draw the edges. In fact, by default, if two nodes are connected, they are connected with a line that is not curvy. But if you want, you can change this behavior. In fact, we have the attribute called edge is always curvy. And if I set it to true, basically, even if you not only have one single edge in between, this will be curvy. And the last change that I want to do is to change the way users interact with Linkurious Enterprise. And as you can see, we have a rotation object. By default, it's disabled, but I want to turn it on, so I can type true, and I can save. So now I can go to visualization. I can search once again for Timmy. And as you might notice, Linkurious Enterprise looks very differently. So the background is different. If I expand some nodes, they are connected with a curvy edge, so it's not a line. And moreover, I have the possibility to rotate the graph. So this might be very useful in case you need to change the position of nodes in a visualization, but you don't want to move them. So what you can do is just to rotate the graph and to have them in a different orientation. We reached the end of the demo. Anyway, all the examples that has been displayed today are available in our documentation. So if you want to replicate some of them, you have the code of all this example in our documentation that is available online. And that's it for the demo.
Yes, thank you, Andrea. And as I said earlier, you have in this webinar the handout section in which you can find links to this documentation to find in writing everything that Andrea has been explaining to us today. Thank you, Andrea. As we wrap up this presentation and before we switch to the Q&A, there are a lot of questions today, so I think we are going to be busy. I would like to highlight a few takeaways. So why would you use Linkurious Enterprise styling features? First, to make your visualization more meaningful. Actually, by using colors or different thickness or sizes or custom icon, you help your visualization make more sense and make them easier to understand. Second reason is to unify your visualization by using corporate icons or your own images or your own colors. You can leverage existing visual language and customize your graph to build a common understanding. And last thing I wanted to highlight is that everything you put in place here ultimately help you speed up your investigations. When your team uses the same colors, shapes, or icon across visualization, well, it helps your analysts make sense of the data faster. It helps them reduce the time to insight and ultimately reduce the time to reach a conclusion. We hope that you have now a better understanding of Linkurious styling feature and how it can help you improve your use of Linkurious Enterprise. Thank you very much for joining and for your questions. If you have specific topic coming up after this webinar, and you want to discuss them with us, you can get in touch with Andrea and I directly, or reach out to our support. The address is just here, support@linkurio.us. Thanks again for joining. Thank you, Andrea, for the presentation, and see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.